word October. The sound you hear is the gentle, lapping waves of a picturesque lake in a North American mountain town, popular with tourists. This is the start of Octoberpod. Our Confidential Vacation Guide by Ernest Hemingway, published in the May 21st, 1921 edition of the Toronto Star Weekly, adapted especially for Octoberpod by John Iger, narrated by Edward October. Any steady reader of obituaries is familiar with the phrase, "He had not taken a vacation in 20 years. It may be that the dead man had not taken a vacation in 10 years, in 30 years, during all the time he was mayor, or during his entire lifetime. It all points toward the same false moral. It seems obvious that if the poor chap had only accepted the vacation his employers kept forcing on him, he might be alive today. This is very wrong. The trouble is that newspapers do not make a practice of printing as a cause of death this statement: he spent every summer at Lake Milky Tossup, or the deceased was in the habit of spending the month of August at Super Nutso Land Theme Park and Resort. A few statements like these would clear up matters. Newspaper readers would then realize that the reason the first man lived 20 years was because he had carefully preserved his health through abstaining from vacations. The reason that the other splendid fellow had dropped like ripened grapefruit at the end of their 30 years, mayoral terms, or lifetimes was the fact that they had never visited such places as Lake Screaming Water or picturesque Bum View. Why, just a few seasons at Giggling Perch Inn or a long weekend at Ye Old Oak and Elven Fair every July would have cut them off like flies in the pride of their young adulthood. If you must take a vacation, hearken to Octoberpod's confidential guide on places to avoid. It has been compiled at great labor and is available here for the first time. It means a longer life, happier too, if one avoids vacationing at any of the following: Poachdale Inn, Ontario. How to reach Poachdale Inn? This is not important. How to get away from Poachdale Inn? Bounce in a hurtling Ford through 5 miles of mud. Wait at the railway until the train comes. There is no train on Sunday. Try not to be hysterical when the train comes in sight. How about Beautiful Lake Flyblow? Beautiful Lake Flyblow nestles like a plague spot in the heart of the great North Woods. All around it rise the majestic hills. Above it towers the majestic sky. On every side of it is the majestic shore. The shore is lined with majestic dead fish. They died of loneliness. Take Smiling Lake Wawa. You will sleep all afternoon. Then you will lie awake all night. Then the Jarvis's rooster will crow again, and it will be another day. You have 13 more to go till you get back to the office. Will you last it, or will the vacation kill you? Still others will avoid the natural splendor of our mountains, lakes, and national parks in favor of other summertime thrills and amusements. And so they'll pack the wife, kids, and half their belongings into the family wagon and head off to some technicolor mecca of bright flashing lights, dark rides, daily parades, roller coasters, and carnival games. Like any other vacation, a trip to the amusement park has its own perils and horrors. Here are a few testimonials we found online. The place names and certain other details have been changed to avoid upsetting any litigious cartoon rodents or waterfowl. Friend of the show, Autumn Grube, from the podcast Autumn's Oddities, is also on hand to help me narrate a few of them. I'm a former theme park worker. I was working the Spook Walk, our walk-through haunted house attraction, and about 20 minutes before closing, this really creepy guy showed up and asked to go in. And I said, yeah. He had a really glazed look to his eyes, and he was wearing a red and white striped shirt and overalls, and spoke in a really high-pitched falsetto. Well, 20 minutes later, he hadn't exited the haunted house yet, and it usually took about 5 minutes to walk through it. At the end of my shift, I had to go in and walk through the haunted house by myself, which already is really scary for me, but made even scarier because I knew the guy was still in there. I decided to suck it up, and I walked in trying to be confident. But only about a quarter of the way through, I heard him talking to himself up ahead in a really creepy voice, saying stuff like,
"It's scary. No, it's not."
I was freaked out and turned around and ran out and got my manager and asked him to walk through the haunted house for me. In that time, the guy must have left because when me and my manager walked through, he was gone. And I have no idea how he managed to get out of there without either of us seeing him.
2. The hypercritical one writes, "Well, at my park, we had these duck-themed paddle boats. The late-night shifts made this particularly scary. Anyways, I was working the ducks and, tied up all the boats and went to clock out, but I forgot the ride register, so I went back to get it, and when I got there, 2 of the boats had drifted out into the middle of the lake. I figured it was just that I fucked up the knots. So I had to get my manager so that he could use the motorboat to go and get them, but he just looked at me dead on and said in a very serious tone, 'Leave them alone.' The next day, those 2 boats were gone and replaced with a couple of spares we had. Now, these things were big, like the same length as a Mini Cooper, and wider, much wider. They were built to hold 2 adults if necessary, and they were just gone. They weren't even kept in the back with the other spares. They were just gone. When I think back to it, I'm certain that I tied them properly because I had thought that if I didn't and they drifted, that I'd get in trouble. I got to talking about it to some of my coworkers one afternoon, while we were backstage waiting for a thunderstorm to pass, and they said that it was probably the ghost. Apparently, there's this old story about this kid who drowned in the lake years ago, and his ghost goes around collecting shit and piling it up on the bottom of the lake near the location of his body, which, according to the story, was never recovered. This one girl I worked with said that she knew a guy who was working at the park when a diver went down to the bottom of the lake to do some kind of repair on a fountain pump. He said the diver found what looked like a giant underwater shrine made up of all the shit that disappeared in and around the lake. And I bet that that's where those paddle boats ended up.
Ghost or no ghost, I kind of get it, says Roku Daime Hokage. The idea of something that big and mechanical, especially if you have submechanophobia, just vanishing into the water below is unnerving. Submechanophobia, by the way, is the fear of submerged or partially submerged man-made objects. Kind of like the bomb shark animatronic that jumps out at you at Super Nutso Land. That thing has given me nightmares since this one 4th of July when I was like 6 or 7.
Butterflyer writes, "This happened back during my first season working at a local amusement park in my hometown. During the mid to late summer, we have a monsoon season where almost every day at around 4 p.m., a very intense thunderstorm rolls through town. Hail, lightning, thunder, tornado sirens, the works. The storm moves so fast that it only lasts about 20 minutes before it moves on. One day, the storm had hit the park, and as per usual, we shut down all the rides and helped the guests find shelter from the hail and wait it out. During this time, lightning had actually struck one of the rides, specifically the wave swinger ride that spins around and with people in swings. Fortunately, nobody was anywhere near the ride when the lightning struck. However, the power surge had caused the ride to start up on its own, and it was moving at a much faster speed than it was originally designed to. All the ride ops, including me, for the surrounding rides were taking shelter with some guests at another ride as we were watching this ride suddenly start up and spin out of control. The ride's assigned operator was freaking out. She had the key in hand and everything. And suddenly we all started hearing a lot of excited chatter over the radio as supervisors and managers thought someone was on the ride. Mind you, hail is falling the whole time. Unfortunately, I had to run out there dodging hail and lightning to hit the emergency stop button on the ride and shut it down. The ride ended up being shut down for quite some time after that.
According to Root KRP, this next story happened at an amusement park that we'll call Mega Magic Land. While stocking up one of the carts from inside an unused empty location, I had an unexplainable experience. The location I was in used to be a pizzeria, Izza da Pizza, near the Scrambler, if you're familiar with the park. It's empty and void of life, and only gets used occasionally for maybe something like training. The tables that were used for the restaurant were stacked upside down on top of the tables. The tables were heavy, with concrete tabletops that would take 2 guys to move them. And upon entering the location and beginning my inventory, I felt uneasy and just chalked it up to being tired and creeped out because it was late. To get to the stockroom, you have to pass by the dining area with the tables, and I did so without incident. After counting our overpriced ice creams, I turned around to head out the way I came and locked up. What met me as I turned around the dark corner freaked me out. Right there, blocking my exit, were 3 tables sitting right side up and lined up, obstructing my path. I called out if anyone was there and was met with silence. I simply turned around and ran to the back entrance and left the building from there. Afterwards, I explained to a coworker how I was alone up there and heard absolutely no one, and how the heavy-as-hell tables got moved and flipped so swiftly and silently. I was then later told that years ago, a little boy with a heart condition ran all the way up the hill, racing his friends, and essentially dropped dead right in front of that restaurant, probably 10 feet from where my incident had occurred. I hate closing at night now.
One-Way Man is supposedly a ghost that sits next to single riders on Galactic Pony Express, which is an indoor dark ride roller coaster in Super Nutso Land, and this is according to Untimely Lord. He will seem like a regular single rider that sits next to you, may even have talked with you in line, but at the end of the ride, after the photo flash, there will be no one sitting next to you.
I've been on that ride with him before, says Snoo61913. As a child, maybe 12 years old, he'd talk to you. He looked clean-cut, red hair, looked similar to the main guy in Band of Brothers, and looked like a guy from the 60s. I was at Nutso Land by myself. This was in 2002. My sister had a cheerleading competition that I didn't want to go to, so my dad got me a 3-day Nutso ticket. I actually talked to One-Way Man. I told him I was by myself, and it's hard to get around the park when you forgot your glasses. I don't remember what else we talked about. I just remember him being very nice. Going through that part where they take the ride picture, I looked over and screamed at him, "This is fun, right?" I looked next to me, and he was gone. We hadn't even gotten off the ride yet. I didn't think that he might be a ghost until someone told me the story of One-Way Man.
Star DoorDash writes, I've heard of that ghost, but the way I heard it, he was called the Faceless Mechanic. When they were first premiering Galactic Pony Express, back when the ride was still called Space Patrol Star Racers, there was a maintenance worker working on the tracks. A cast member came in and, not knowing there was a maintenance worker on the tracks, started a test run of the ride. Space Patrol Star Racers and Galactic Pony Express still has tracks that have no maintenance tunnels or alcoves on the side of the tracks. In other words, if you get caught on those tracks, and there are about a mile of tracks, you have nowhere to go to avoid the ride vehicle. By the time the coaster got back to the station, it had dragged the maintenance worker through the entire ride, face down, killing him. They say that his ghost haunts the Galactic Pony Express to this day as the Faceless Mechanic. Cast members say they see a guy in an old mechanic's uniform walking through the attraction, but when they try to see his face, it's just a shadow. Frightened guests have ridden this attraction as a single rider and said during the ride, a faceless Nutso-Land cast member in an old uniform appeared beside them, disappearing only when they got back to the main terminal. The Faceless Mechanic is the scariest of the Nutso Park ghost stories, and there are a bunch of them out there.
Husker One Rob says, I worked security at Good Times Carolina Adventure Park. The thing that sticks out the most to me was around 13 years ago, on the 4th of July. I went with a group of other security officers to help out at Wizards Bay Water Park, since they had more guests than usual show up. Come to find out, the increased attendance was because of a radio station that was banned from the park, that had announced that this rockabilly band, the Bat Dragons, and their crew were going to be at Wizards Bay that day, and the station was awarding tickets that they didn't have, by the way, to listeners. Now, if you don't know about them, the Bat Dragons have a devoted fan base of these punk-ass hooligans. They're kind of like juggalos, I guess. And these guys are a clown show, so they make a lot of enemies, especially among street gangs. So what ends up happening is that a bunch of these hooligans show up so they can hang out with the band. But also a bunch of street gangs who are beefing with the band hooligans decide to show up as well. So the place to hang out is the wave pool. Every 45 minutes there's a 15-minute safety break where everyone has to leave the water. When this happens, most people just get in the lazy river that flows around the wave pool. Well, during one of these safety breaks, all of a sudden I start hearing people simultaneously yelling and then see all kinds of people running. Next thing I know, there's a gang fight in the lazy river. Well, one of the first things we're taught is to never get in the middle of a group fight because they will stop fighting each other and start fighting you. Well, a Wizards Bay security officer decides to ignore all that and jumps in and gets his butt kicked. I think he actually got yelled at more for getting his radio wet than for getting beaten up. There were a few more fights after that, so the park called the police to send in more officers to help. Turns out there was this one creepy dude in Bat Dragon makeup going around stabbing people. Don't know how he got a knife into the park. We ended up having the local SWAT team out there helping out. Every safety break after that had us in high alert for people fighting. People were floating in the lazy river during the safety breaks, just looking at us and bragging about all the trouble that was going on, and the fact that the SWAT team was there because they were so brutal. I've not been to any amusement park since I quit because of stuff like that, and do not plan on going back anytime soon.
Taco Cat 042 says that Hamburger Park is supposedly haunted by, I think, 3 spirits or something. I've only seen one of the things. A worker who wanted to start his own amusement park died of cancer and couldn't accomplish his dream, sadly. But he worked at a ride called the Wild Banshee. And when I worked there, one day the ride legit started up on its own and just went on through. It was super freaky, and apparently it does that a lot. I only saw it once, though. Mind you, it's really not possible to do without someone there to actually turn it on. So, yeah.
I heard that the ghost of Marlowe Laffler, the founder of the Hamburger's restaurant chain and of Hamburger Park, tends to appear a lot of places like the Grand Hamburger Hotel. I used to bartend up at the hotel, and a common story was that Marlowe would show up at the Bingo Lounge, which used to be a cigar lounge but is now a bar, and have a nice smoke. On some nights you can still smell the cigars. There's another ride called the Fugue Fries Adventure. So apparently there's a hockey player that haunts that ride, although I never saw it. But security guards swear that every now and then, on security footage, they can see a figure. People claim that the ride starts on its own as well, and some have said they heard a man's voice.
Thorax Kicks Ass used to work at a janky old amusement park in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. We liked to hang out in the parking lot after work and all talk. The place was haunted as fuck. We watched many a ride start up with no one around and then suddenly shut off. We watched the Bearcat coaster turn on suddenly and climb the hill halfway. From our spot, we could see the ride operations booth was empty, and it was way after hours, and no one but us and the park security was there. I also believed there were transients living in the park that would come out at night. It was the best job I ever had, but it was still spooky.
In 2017, at Fort Quetzalcoatl Hotel in Super Nutso World, my wife and I heard what sounded like a horse-drawn carriage parade. It seemed to have gone on for quite some time. Around 9:30 p.m., I contacted the front desk to ask when it would be over because we were tired and wanted to sleep. They were confused. There was no parade or celebration. Just then, my wife and I realized the clamor had ended. It was super strange. Still have no idea what it was all about.
The only ghostly thing that has happened to me at any of the Nutso parks is the little boy that haunts Lil Wonder World. Cast members and guests say they've seen a little boy riding solo on the ride and has even been seen on security cameras. The little boy likes to turn off the lights and even bring the attraction to a stop. I remember when I was a cast member once dealing with the attraction when the ride came to a sudden halt. We couldn't find or figure out why it had happened, and having to help guests off the boats and exit the attraction, I just kept thinking it was that poor little boy.
Ex-ride operator from Monogram Studio Park here. There's a couple stories depending on the area of the park, but Camp Critter Creek is haunted by a little girl named Molly who died in a fire. She would turn on and off the rides even though the keys were moved, unlike the doors of one of the rides. And on one occasion, I was walking away from the kids' coaster and saw a little girl running towards it at closing time. I yelled for her, telling her it was closed, but she ran up the stairs and I saw her enter the main dock as well. You can get in trouble for that, but as I got closer, I realized there's no little girl. Anyone can say what they want, but Molly is present. She mostly likes to hang out by the Ferris wheel and in the waterfall area and the rock formations in and around it. After closing a ride, I'd say goodnight to Molly and tell her I'm turning off the lights and the ride to make sure she doesn't turn them back on again.
Dexter Grant writes, "This story made the rounds with the interns in the college program at Nutso Country, USA, way back in the early 80s. I can't tell if it had any basis in fact or not. The story goes that one night on the T-Rex Mine Train, which is a cross between a dark ride and a train that does a slow circuit around all the attractions in Prehistoric Village, a teenager tried to climb from car to car. He slipped and fell and was dragged under the car behind him. As he was pulled under, he grabbed his girlfriend's long hair. As you went through the tunnel, girls with long hair would feel their hair being pulled by his frantic ghost. I felt it myself.
Finally, Jane Bananas says, I just met a cast member last night who worked backstage security for 7 years, mostly in the evenings and through the night at Good Times Adventure Park. She heard this incident over the radio. A custodial member called over the radio asking for security because he heard a small boy, maybe around 5 years old, yelling,
Daddy, Daddy.
They never found a child. Sometime later, not sure if it was the same day or some time had passed, the cast member I spoke to said she was in a parking structure and heard a little boy yelling,
Daddy, Daddy.
She heard someone else call it over the radio, and then a security team was driving up and down the parking structure looking for a child, but they never found anything.
Welcome to beautiful Zombie Island. In Zombie Island Massacre, you'll witness ancient voodoo ceremonies. And if you're very lucky, and for no extra charge, you might even get to participate in these picturesque rituals. Sample the world-famous Zombie Island cuisine. Cannibalisms. You won't believe your senses when you find out.
It's intermission time, folks. I'm your host, Mr. Edward October. That was the radio spot for Zombie Island Massacre. I love how it subverts expectations by presenting the titular island as a desirable tourist destination. With school out for the summer, people all over the world will be flocking to tourist destinations far and wide in search of fun in the sun. If you're looking for your next place to vacation, you might want to consult Horror Cinema for some ideas on which places to avoid. Now, I'm sure you know to stay away from Jurassic Park, Camp Crystal Lake, sketchy Eastern European youth hostels, or the shark-infested waters of Amity Island. But you'd be surprised how many other horror pictures begin with clueless vacationers or exhausted city folk who are looking to get away from it all. So, for those of you who have not yet planned your summer getaway, here's my rundown of some of the worst tourist destinations and vacation ideas from horror cinema. Transylvania. It should go without saying that you should want to stay the hell out of Transylvania. And if you do go, it's best to stay away from the castle. Any castle. And wear this crucifix for your mother's sake. And yet, there are countless spook pictures where this sort of thing is continually happening. Vacationers stumbling on to Dracula's castle or Dr. Frankenstein's chateau on their way to some place exotic. The folks at Britain's Hammer Films were fond of doing this. In Kiss of the Vampire, for example, a pair of honeymooners experience car trouble in their late 19th, early 20th century jalopy and are forced to stay just outside the vampire's castle until it can be repaired. The best instance of this, though, can be found in Hammer's third Dracula picture, though it's only the second one to feature Christopher Lee's Dracula himself. It is Dracula, Prince of Darkness. Here, a group of English travelers bump into the gregarious vampire-hunting monk, Father Sandor.
And what, may I ask, are four charming English people doing in the Carpathians?
Some climbing, some sightseeing. Travel broadens the mind.
Admirable. But I question your choice of locale. You certainly won't have your mind broadened by this lot.
You don't seem to have a very high opinion of your flock.
Not mine. Oh, dear me, no. I wouldn't tolerate them. I wouldn't tolerate them! You will find things very different at Kleinberg. I hope that you will visit us there. You could stay at the monastery. The brothers would make you very welcome.
Well, thank you, Father. That sounds like a fine idea.
Our program won't allow for it. Tomorrow we go to Carlsbad. Though I suppose we could change our plans.
I suggest that you do so. I don't care whether you visit Kleinberg or not. I'm just saying you shouldn't go to Carlsbad.
I've heard it's very beautiful.
So is that drop of belladonna.
Deadly nightshade.
Oh, we're all quite experienced climbers, Father.
Climbing's got nothing to do with it. And when I tell you not to go to Carlsbad, I want you to take note. At least stay well clear of the castle.
Castle? But there's no castle marked on the map. I would have noticed.
Because it is not on the map doesn't mean it does not exist. Stay away from it. Ladies?
Of course, they ignore the warning, end up staying the night in Castle Dracula, and then, faster than you can say Bob's your uncle, another blood-sucking ballyhoo complete with Barbara Shelley's heaving bosom begins. So, if your vacation takes you to Transylvania, steer clear of the castle, whether it's on the map or not. Old, dark houses.
Yeah?
I'm sorry, who are you?
What? Who are you?
This is 476 Barbary, right?
I don't know. Yeah. I think so.
You don't know?
No. I don't live here. I'm renting this place. It's the middle of the night. I don't have it top of my head, the address.
No, I'm renting this place.
What? Are you sure you have the right place?
Yeah, I booked it like a month ago.
This is unbelievable.
What am I supposed to do?
I don't know. Why don't you come inside and we'll call these idiots.
Old dark houses and haunted houses. There are plenty of pictures about the too cheap to be true vacation rental that turns out to be haunted by ghosts, or, as is the case in Barbarian, by monstrous people. There must be dozens of horror pictures about writers, musicians, artists, and mental patients who spend a season at a creepy old house to get away from it all and are shocked to find spooky-ass shit going down in said spooky-ass house. What gets me more are the films, and there are enough examples of this that it's a trope, where people vacation in an old house and spend the whole summer fixing it up and maintaining the grounds. Who the fuck does this? How is that a vacation? In Burnt Offerings, an author, played by Oliver Reed, is the type of person who does this very thing.
Tuesday night, it was going to be the summer of their lives, in the house of their dreams. It was almost too good to be true. Lock Your Doors Week continues with Burnt Offerings, 8:05 Eastern on TBS Tuesday night.
He does odd jobs around the house, trims the bushes, and skims scum off the pool. Is this how he likes to vacation? Is this just a plot device that enables him to uncover clues about the haunting? Or is this yet another illustration of the extreme lengths that writers will go to avoid writing? Either way, if your Airbnb seems too good to be true, or comes with some weird strings attached, like feeding the old lady living upstairs, you might want to vacation elsewhere. Hiking.
Did you hear that?
I heard that.
What was it?
Could be a lot of things.
Yeah?
A coyote.
There aren't any coyotes in England.
It's a full moon. Beware the moon and stick to the road. Oops.
Hey, wait a minute. We're lost. Oh, shit, David. What is that?
I don't know. Come on.
Come on, where?
Anywhere. I think we should just keep moving.
I know what you're thinking. What's the worst that can happen? Quite a bit, actually. Suppose you want to spend the summer backpacking across the moors of England with your best pal. Sounds fun, doesn't it? Until a werewolf comes along and rips your BFF to ribbons. That's what happens in An American Werewolf in London. What about a girls' weekend hiking in the mountains of Tennessee? Maybe you'll find a new cave system to explore.
According to the guidebook, this cave system has 3 ways in and out. This is just one of them. Isn't that right, Juno? Juno, that's right, isn't it? You checked the book?
I didn't bring it.
What?
No point.
For Christ's sake, Juno. I knew this wasn't right.
You followed a flight plan to Mountain Rescue. If we don't report in, they'll come looking for us.
Yeah, that's how it's supposed to work, except I put in a flight plan for Borum Caverns, and this isn't Borum Caverns, is it, Juno?
We're in the wrong cave.
Holly was right. Borum Caverns was a tourist trap. Don't try and pin this shite on me.
This is not caving, this is an ego trip.
Come on, Rebecca, I didn't know this was gonna happen.
Where are we?
It hasn't got a name. It's a new system. I wanted us all to discover it.
How the hell are we supposed to get out?
There may not be a way out.
Look, there's no going back now. We have to find a way out of this chamber and keep pushing forward.
Just get us out of here.
Watch The Descent and see how a getaway adventure with the girls might work out. But that's how the girls' trip went. Let's examine The Ritual to see how the bros are faring on their hiking trip. The Ritual is one of my favorite horror novels written in the last few years. It begins with one of my favorite horror novel opening paragraphs. And on the second day, things did not get better. The rain fell hard and cold. The white sun never broke through the low gray cloud, and they were lost. But it was the dead thing they found hanging from a tree that changed the trip beyond recognition.
Why is it ripped open?
It's been gutted.
Why hang it like that? I mean, would someone do that? Well, it didn't f***ing put itself there, that's for sure.
Could be hunters out here.
Bait.
Possibly. Or it's the bit they don't show you in the nature documentary.
What could do that, though?
Bear?
Do bears do that?
I don't know, Dominic, I'm not a bear expert.
Still bleeding. So?
So it means that whatever did that, we should go. It's the first kill. Yeah, we should go.
Yeah, that pretty much sums up what you can expect hiking in a horror film. The novel was adapted by Netflix in 2017, and while it deviates from the book in ways I don't like, it still succeeds at being a cracking folk horror film, featuring one of the most offbeat creature designs of the last 25 years, and serves as yet another stern warning to stay the fuck at home. Australia. I think I'd take my chances with the vampires and werewolves in Transylvania and on the English moors before I'd ever consider vacationing in Australia. I mean, even in non-horror pictures, Australia is terrifying.
The dingoes got my baby!
And if the action films are to be believed, there are new wave punk rock motorcycle gangs roving the countryside at all times, with their mohawks, spiky leather gimp clothes, and heavy metal music. But when you're not in danger from the real Australian wildlife or the post-apocalyptic road warriors, you're likely to be lured to your doom by Australia's haunted landscape.
Well, young ladies, we are indeed fortunate in the weather for our picnic to Hanging Rock. Once again, let me remind you, the rock itself is extremely dangerous. You are therefore forbidden any tomboy foolishness in the matter of exploration, even on the lower slopes. I also wish to remind you, the vicinity is renowned for its venomous snakes and poisonous ants of various species. It is, however, a geological marvel. Try to behave yourselves in a manner to bring credit to the college.
Stopped at 12. Never stopped before. Must be something magnetic.
Everything begins and ends at exactly the right time. You must learn to love someone else. Apart from me, I won't be here much longer.
Miranda, don't go! They come back!
Victorian schoolgirls on a field trip disappear without a trace in the haunting and enigmatic film Picnic at Hanging Rock. Was this disappearance the result of murder, foul play, psychosexual hysteria, ghosts, or some unknowable eldritch horror? You decide. Indeed, if you find yourself in a horror picture and you're going to Australia, you'd better not be a teenage girl on a school trip. If you don't believe me, watch Lake Mungo to find out. It's the story of a family's haunting that begins when a teenage girl goes on a field trip to, you guessed it, Lake Mungo, and returns changed.
Something bad is going to happen to me. I feel like something bad has happened. It hasn't reached me yet, but it's on its way. And it's getting closer. And I don't feel ready. I feel like I can't do anything.
I won't spoil the rest of this hauntological faux documentary, but it's a picture that's eerie, poignant, and tragic in equal measure, and one which tackles big questions about death, family, and identity. The rural United States. Transylvania, Australia, the English moors, and haunted houses out in the middle of nowhere are all among the worst vacations in the history of horror cinema. But do you know what films as diverse as The Descent, Burnt Offerings, and Barbarian all have in common? They're all set in the USA, motherfuckers! That's right. From California to the New York Island, this land was made for booze and screams. And for my money, there's no better place to have the worst horror movie vacation of your life than in the rural United States.
Would you fill her up, please?
I got no gas.
You're out of gas?
My tank's empty. Transport won't be here until late this afternoon. Maybe not even until tomorrow morning.
Hey, you know where the old Franklin place is?
The old Franklin place?
Yeah, it's an old two-story rock house and it's sitting up on a hill. I think you have to turn on that road back there, but I'm not real sure.
Yeah, maybe I seen something like that up that way. Well, now look, you boys don't want to go mess around no old house. Those things is dangerous. You're liable to get hurt.
We'll be careful.
You don't want to go fooling around other folks' property. Some folks don't like it, and they don't mind showing you.
In the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, note the spelling, chainsaw is 2 words, a bunch of meddling kids in a van on a road trip through the less traveled back roads of the Lone Star State find themselves terrorized and mutilated by cannibalistic freaks who represent a cracked mirror image of the all-American family and the American dream. Take The Hills Have Eyes, in which an all-American white Anglo-Saxon Protestant family loads up in the old wood-paneled station wagon to take a road trip through the desert and get themselves assaulted, murdered, and or brutalized by cannibalistic freaks who represent another cracked mirror image of the all-American family, betrayed and abandoned by the American dream.
They wanted to see something different, but something different saw them first. The Hills Have Eyes.
Mister, don't take your family back in that area. The silver has been gone for 40 years now. Besides, there's nothing back in there but animals.
We're lost. The old creep told you not to get off the road.
What began as a vacation ended as a nightmare.
You hell to pay now.
She thought she knew what the world was all about, but nothing prepared her for this. The Hills Have Eyes.
Oh, you going with my baby?
Get out of the way, Dick.
A mother fighting for her child loses it in the worst possible way.
I hit him with a tire iron and I split his face wide open. That was a bad mistake. I come back for you later, girlie.
The story of an American family who lost everything except the will to survive. The Hills Have Eyes. The story of one family's refusal to die.
I'm gonna get those animals.
They fought back. Anything was a weapon. The family dog to the family car.
It's working!
The Hills Have Eyes. The lucky ones died first.
Why, you can't even take a relaxing canoe trip with the bros, as they do in Deliverance, without having to commit murder defending yourself against violent, inbred hill people.
You take this man down out of the mountains and turn him over to the sheriff, there's going to be a trial, all right. Trial by jury.
So what?
We killed a man, Drew. Shot him in the back. A mountain man. Cracker. It gives us something to consider.
All right. Consider, we're listening.
Shit, all these people are related. Be goddamned if I want to come back up here and stand trial with this man's aunt and his uncle. Maybe his mama and his daddy sitting in the jury box. What do you think, Bobby?
I don't know what you got in mind, but if you try to conceal this body, you're setting yourself up for a murder charge. Now, that much law I do know. You killed somebody. There he is.
I see him, Drew. That's right, I killed somebody. Damn it, we can get out of this thing without any questions asked. We get connected up with that body and the law. This thing's gonna be hanging over us the rest of our lives. We gotta get rid of that guy.
Just how are you gonna do that, Lewis? Where?
Anywhere.
Now, you may find these depictions of Americans living in remote, undeveloped, often impoverished areas of the country to be reactionary. And you'd be right. Many rural folk are honest, hard-working people who'd never resort to cannibalism, for example. But behind every cannibalistic mutant hillbilly, I'd bet you there's a government policy that failed them. The Texas Chainsaws Sawyer family, for example, are a grotesque symptom of the fallout from the Vietnam War and the corporatization of the beef industry. And speaking as someone who was born and raised in the Appalachian Mountains, if you ain't never been to the holler, you won't understand the holler. So you'd best get the fuck on out of the holler. Now, let me learn you about something else. Whoa, golly. I didn't realize the snack bar's closing up already. You know what that means. Act 2 of Octoberpod starts now. Summer is also the time when millions dress up as wildly fanciful characters and flock out to some sun-baked field in the middle of nowhere to join in the frivolity and bacchanalia of the Renaissance Faire. Here's a cautionary tale of one such fair-goer. Gather round, friends, whether tall or wee. Hear the tale of a man who would be the greatest sorcerer to cast a spell, and of the dark fate which on his head fell. Out of the wood he did appear from a suburb, not nigh from here. His dress was royal, and heavy was his purse. Little did he know that he'd already been cursed. From another world he came, but in our village he seemed unsane. His pantomime of dark magic, to us, it seemed, was the work of some damnable fiend. His arms flailed, holding a totem he called a phone. His eyes were wide, and his mouth foamed. We feared he'd cast us into an abyss of blackness, so we seized him and unmasked him. To his great sadness, brought him to the deputy, who heard the sorcerer lie and plea. I parked my car, said the man, in lot 7A. Then I must have traveled to the past, from present day. His leg began to glow. 'Twas 'Twas his phone totem again. Then we heard a ghostly voice call out from within.
Ron, where you at, bro? This beer wench has weed, and you gotta see these pics on her Instagram feed.
Our laws in matters of sorcery are clear, and besides, we'll tolerate no outlanders here. The magistrate condemned him to immediate death. Fire would cleanse and draw out his last breath. He shouted and swore, I'll never cosplay anymore. The Renaissance Faire is always unruly. I should have stayed home and just watched Svengoolie. As the flames licked up, he lamented his dark ways. I should have stayed in bed and slept in all day. Sorcerers may possess totems and mystical twigs, but they roast up just as sweet as ripe suckling pigs. That was the Ballad of Ron, Sorcerer from Beyond, written by Amber Jourdan, who, as it so happens, is here with us today.
Hiya, Ed.
I think it's safe to assume that you have quite a bit of experience working and attending Renaissance fairs.
So one thing that I've noticed about the Ren life is that it's like this huge family vibe. I barely knew anyone, and yet I knew a lot more people than I was expecting to know. It's like not the real world, because people are nice to each other. But seriously, it was at times like traveling into the past, because some people really get into that spirit and that life of the Ren Fairology. I don't know if that's a word, but I like it. But, there's a lot of laughter at the Ren Fair, and a lot of fighting, a lot of good-spirited fighting. Hopefully not a whole lot of not good-spirited fighting. It's so much fun. Everybody walks around all sashaying and have swords on their hips and really cool eyepieces and really cool jewelry and just like really living that life. And probably not going home and making jam, but some of them are. Some of them really were living that old-timey life. And that to me is the coolest thing about it, is like the idea of trying to take it back several steps and live life in an old way. That's the kind of life that Ren Fair brings, and I think that's good for the world. I really do.
Well, like all the summertime amusements we've spotlighted in this episode, Ren Fairs are not without their horror stories. We've gathered a few of them from the darkest corners of the internet. Some we've had to modify or mash up to protect anonymity and other sensitive information. But who better to narrate them than the classiest which we know?
Ooh, I'd love to. Let's dive right in. A deleted user posted this. A guy I knew fell onto the blacksmith's fire and basically melted his arm because an owl the falconer couldn't control swooped at his hair and tried to rip it off. Then, Maybe Heart of Gold replied, a very similar incident happened at an Arizona Ren Fair. Guy fainted from the outdoor temperature plus lack of good air. Said he woke up just in time to see his hand grow skinny and fingers curl away. He's stable now, but he's already lost his entire forearm and might lose more if they can't stay ahead of the damage to his humorous. Rural Ren Fair farmhouse madness from a true haunting incident by High on the Mountaintop. Every time I think about this encounter, it still breaks my brain and gives me chills. I'm convinced I'm not misremembering childhood events, and after all these years, It's still unexplainable. When I was 7 or 8 years old, my best friend April and I spent all of our free time playing together on her family's farm in the middle of nowhere. There was a barn with an upstairs loft where we'd spend hours and hours playing make-believe and creating stories about our fantasy kingdom that would be played out for weeks on end. This loft was mostly just storage for boxes and spare furniture and other old junk. There was a small wooden chair in the corner of the loft. One day, April and I are playing in the barn. We were both sitting in the front part of the loft, with our legs dangling over the edge of the wooden loft, which was about 10 feet off the ground. Our backs were turned to that old chair. At some point, we noticed some movement over our shoulders. We turned and saw a little girl about our age with large, thick, square glasses and dressed in a very neat little dress, like an old-timey Little House on the Prairie dress. But aside from the thick glasses and the antique style of dress, she looked exactly like me. She was just sitting in the chair, looking at us. I was totally creeped out and asked April, "Who is that girl in the chair?" April immediately panics and jumps up so quickly that she almost falls out of the loft. Well, this caused me to panic as well, and we both bolted out of the loft and hauled ass out of the barn. We were so young that we couldn't even comprehend what had just happened. We just accepted it and moved on. Didn't ever tell any adults about it, as I recall. However, we never went back in that barn. We had to convince ourselves that it was just a trick of the mind in order to sleep at night. Fast forward to my freshman year of college. April's family had sold their farm around the time we'd graduated high school, and now the new owners leased the land to the local Ren Fair, and we thought it'd be a kick to get dressed up and check it out. April went as a fairy, and I went as my D&D character, who is a dragonborn sorceress. This particular fair was primarily made up of tents, with some wood plank stages here and there. But they kept the old barn standing and used it as the location for a little petting zoo area. Not surprisingly, me and April stayed clear of that place. It was like an unspoken agreement between the two of us that we were still afraid we might see a creepy Little House on the Prairie girl who looked like me. We had a fun time. This is an annual Ren Fair, and it's done very well for its size, but the whole time I was there, I felt like I was being watched or followed. But I managed to shake it off. But we did go to get some cone bread, which was in a tent diagonally across from the petting zoo thing. As I was picking up our cone breads and a couple of beers, I happened to glance in the direction of the barn. I saw a dark figure standing there with goats and sheep, walking all around her as if they didn't see her. She was wearing a costume that was exactly like mine. Not just similar, but an exact copy. And I'd made this costume by hand, with some very specific details related to my character added to it. And with the exception of a pair of thick square glasses, she looked just like me. I dropped our food and made a sort of frightened noise. April heard me, and when she looked at me, I pointed. April stood up and said, "I see her!" April had had a beer and some mead, so I think she was buzzed and full of liquid courage. She started marching over to the woman, who I guess was the little girl in the barn, except she'd aged as many years as me. And April marched in her direction as if to say, "What the fuck?" But then a large group of people passed between April and the petting zoo barn. And after those people had passed, my doppelganger was gone. April and I both still vividly remember the image of the girl in the chair, and then to have an almost identical experience years later at the Ren Fair, it boggles the mind. I know we both saw the same thing, and I know it was real. I have no explanation. I guess it was a ghost or spirit. But why did it have my face? Was it a mimic? What kind of spirit was she? And why did we encounter her twice, almost 2 decades apart? Reddit user Cellophane Boats writes, I was working in character one year, and a male patron really took a liking to me. The first thing he said to me was a cheesy pickup line, and he just kept on flirting with me. He asked me for my real name, not my character name, and kept asking to kiss my hand. Since Faire is a naturally very flirty place, I naively went along with it, assuming I'd never see him again. Well, I did. Next weekend, he approached me from behind and sat next to me in a completely different outfit and greeted me by my character name. He was wearing a mask and I had no idea who he was. A friend and fellow performer next to me was also creeped out and asked if I knew him. My guard went up at this point and I tried to shoot down his advances, but he was relentlessly attempting to woo me. We were seated watching a show, and when it was over, my cast joined me in trying to shoo him away. His departing words to me were, I'm never gonna stop pursuing you until you say yes. Chilling. I saw him one other time after this, and thankfully it was a brief interaction. Later that week, he found my social media and followed me. One of my cosplay friends reached out because she'd posted a photo with me and he'd responded to it, and she asked me if I knew him. I told her a bit of the story, and she warned me he has sexual assault allegations against him in the cosplay community. I immediately told my director, who had me write an email to management. I was told security would be on the lookout for him. I was on edge the entirety of next weekend. From what I heard, he managed to get all the way to the end of the site before security caught him with his mask off. They literally carried him out kicking and screaming from Faire, and if I remember correctly, he's been banned from the site. I've since learned from other friends he was shunned from the cosplay community, and one instance of his sexual assault or harassment allegations was against a minor. Jezebel Acid says, all of the drama that you can imagine happening in high school or middle school among Ren Faire workers, except it's with a bunch of adults ranging from 18 to 60 plus years old with easier access to drugs and alcohol. Tons of cliques, people cheating on their significant others, people having sex on grounds and trying not to get caught. At ours, the king's throne was considered the best accomplishment. One of the highlights was when one of the porta potties got infested with crab louse. The nearby gate guard warned the workers he liked not to use that one. The other workers were left to fend for themselves. This one comes from Drunk Pronto Pup. I was at the Ren Fair when a man bypassed a fence to climb a rock wall near the King's Gate area of the festival before falling about 50 feet off the other side. Dude landed 10 feet from my daughter and I. 2 men ran to him, one from my left, one from my right. They reached for his shoulders to sit him up, and I put the fear of God into them with my yelling, "Do not touch him!" He was breathing slowly, gradually slower. He obviously had a pulse, but he was fading. I maintained his C-spine and screamed in his ear in an effort to keep him conscious until the rig showed up. The fall was absolutely an accident. Seemed he tried to take a shortcut through the woods, obviously unaware the woods ended very abruptly. There are no lights to help a person navigate at night. I smelled no alcohol on him, but that doesn't mean he was sober. He was in rough shape with one hell of a raspberry on his head, and one of his legs was definitely broken above the knee. I don't remember which one. If you ever find someone after a fall, do not move them unless you know how to do so without compromising their condition further. Going Higher, adapted from a true encounter posted by Netflix and Bean. I was 17 and a friend invited me to go with her family to a campground where they were having a very small, very local Ren Fair. It was around the 4th of July, so they had fireworks, a drum corps, and all the usual Ren Fair stuff. But they tried to make it a lot more patriotic. Lots of red, white, and blue color schemes on the wench dresses, etc. I even saw a guy dressed as a Captain America themed knight. It was actually really cool. But we were young and dumb and decided to sneak off and get into trouble. The fair stayed open late, well after dark, for fireworks. We went to a part of the campground that wasn't technically a part of the Ren Fair, but we found this private shower area, I guess for people who booked a campsite to use, and decided it'd be a good place to smoke a bowl. I remember we turned on the shower thinking the steam would help cover up the smell of weed, or whatever. We could hear all the crowds and the popping of the fireworks off in the distance, but where we were, there was nobody around. We didn't want to go back too quickly because we were afraid my friend's parents would sniff us out. So we decided to hang out on the swing set, a playground adjacent to the shower shed, or whatever it's called. Our backs were to the trees and it was dark as back in there. So we sat on 2 swings, all dressed up like fairies, with 2 empty swings next to us. We were chatting, listening to the fireworks that we couldn't really see, when we both snapped our heads to the side at the same moment. One of the empty swings was swinging. The air was dead-ass still with no breeze. I know what you're thinking. We probably caused it to swing with our own movement. No, it wasn't a gentle swinging motion. It was gathering speed, as if there was a little kid in it, wanting to go higher, 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 before jumping off. Well, we flew off that swing set and back down the hill to the fairgrounds. Several years later, me and this same friend worked a season at the same Ren Fair, which had gotten much bigger since in the years I was in high school. One day we were at the tavern. It was a rainy day, so not many people showed up, and we were shooting the shit with a vendor who'd worked the fair for a long time. We told her the story about what we'd seen on the swing. In all the years since, we'd just convinced ourselves we were stoned out of our brains and might have hallucinated it or something. But our friend said the campground was very haunted by ghosts from Civil War times. In particular, there's a little girl ghost named Edith who likes to haunt all the playgrounds and children's play areas on the property. Apparently, anyone who works the kiddie attractions at the Ren Fair are instructed to say good morning and good night to Edith whenever they're setting up or breaking down for the day. Otherwise, Edith will make sure bad things happen to them. Reddit user Dorothy Dot writes, I used to go to my local fair twice a season, once with friends and once solo, so I could just do whatever I wanted all day. On one of my solo trips, I met a guy-girl couple about my age. Within an hour, they told me they were poly, very kinky, and invited me back to their place after the fair. The girl was nice, but the guy started describing their sex life, how he would include me in it, and how he imagined I might react to certain acts. I said I had to hit the privy and would meet them at the jousting show, and then ran to the pub to hang out with my bartender friend. Just dodged them for the rest of the day. It was a little stressful. I stayed until after close so my bartender friend could walk me to my car. Not horrible, but definitely my worst fair because I felt so on edge the rest of the day. Rascal King reports that a girl working the costume shop was in a Victorian-era dress during the English monarch weekend. She managed to shart herself, and due to the massive undertaking of recostuming, she decided to try and play it off. It did not work. 90-degree weather combined with sweat and shitty undies is a horrible mix. There were little kids sprinting out of the costume shop retching, and people generally avoided the area all day. She never came back. Wandering Dorothy writes, my friend and boyfriend got roofied at like 11 a.m. It was my boyfriend's first visit to Fair, and I was working, so my friend took him to get his first drink from the fun bar with the shackles and a little tour. She sipped on her drink, he finished his. She started not feeling great, but thought she was just dehydrated. She passed off her drink and my boyfriend finished it. Both ended up with the EMS services before 1 p.m. She's really petite and was really sick. He probably got less, but still threw up for a few hours and was dehydrated. Ruined the fair day for sure. They never figured out who did it. A seasonal Renaissance Festival worker and 7-year beer wench reports, I work in the main castle and am always in costume and speaking like a drunken Hermione Granger. Thank God I know how to say that name, huh? It's a lot of fun. I make excellent money, but sometimes I have to put up with a lot of bullshit. A guy followed me to the porta-john once and tried to grope me. He got hauled out by a giant in a kilt. I've had people puke down my front, spill beer on me, blow fucking horns in my face. We have a spot in the back wooded lot that everyone smokes and drinks at. Someone dragged an actual wooden bar out there, and there's often cheap liquor hidden around. Lots of sex happens in that clearing. The travelers who can't afford the campsite down the road before their first paycheck often camp here. You'll find plenty of people sleeping in hammocks. There's a half dozen in the trees. There were 2 girls that ate a bunch of mushrooms and got lost in the woods for over a day. The cops wouldn't look for them until a full 24 hours went by, even though their purses and cars were still on the grounds. They were terrified in the woods at night, but they found their way back via a giant bonfire and people tapping car horns every few minutes at about 4 a.m. the night after they disappeared. Pretty scary shit. At our first Ren Fest ever, our 3-year-old son needed to pee, so I took him to a porta potty because I needed to pee too. I pee, then go to stand him up to pee as well, and he starts peeing. However, he isn't just peeing. He's also shooting straight diarrhea onto my brand new Ren Fair dress I just bought earlier that day. Luckily, I was wearing 3 skirts layered on top of each other, and it only got on the top 2 layers. Still, that's fucking nasty. I'd throw it all out, guys. I would. This one was adapted from a true story submitted by Scary TJ. Went to the local Ren Fair in the summer of 2019, and I was dressed up as a ring wraith from the Lord of the Rings movie. Looked scary as shit and liked to walk up and down the fair trying to scare all the little kids. Yes, I know I'm an evil but hey, it's fun and I'm an asshole. Well, I'm glad he pointed that out so that I didn't have to. Anyways, karma got me back, so don't worry. I went up to the kids' straw pit looking to see who I could make piss their pants. It was getting dark and most of the people had cleared out to see the last joust, so not many people up there. The straw pit was on the top of a hill, and from there, I could see a tree in the woods just behind a row of closed vendor booths. There was a dark figure hanging from the tree. Now, I just thought there was some kind of spooky, cool Ren Fair performance or something. So I ran down the hill. Almost tripped on my costume. To get a closer look, it was a woman hanging from the tree. She was wearing a white dress and had long black hair. It was sunset, so the jousting field would have been lit up bright orange by the setting sun. But back here, it was almost pitch black with all the tree coverage. And remember, all the booths had closed up in this area and everybody else was at the joust. So I thought it was like strange. There was just one performer doing this hanging routine. But still, when I got closer, the woman in the tree snapped her head up to look at me. She pointed her finger at me and said, 13 days. just like the little fucking girl in The Grudge. I think he means The Ring. I started clapping and told her good job, very convincing, and turned to walk away. I walked back up the hill and turned around. She was gone. And if she was a performer, like one of the acrobats or something, there was no way she could have gotten down from that tree without me seeing, especially the way she must have been harnessed up to that tree. But even then, it didn't occur to me that this might be a spiritual phenomenon. Then 13 days later, right at sundown, my grandfather was driving home from Walmart, got hit by a landscaping truck, and died on the scene. Damn.
Stick around after the credits for a brief word from some of our fellow indie podcasters, creators, and friends. There may even be some bloopers, outtakes, and bonus content as well. You have been listening to Octoberpod. Octoberpod is produced, edited, and directed by Edward October. The series co-producers are M.J. McAdams and Amber Jourdan. Logo and banner graphics by Jessica Good. Edward October character design by Nick Calavera. Select still photography courtesy of unsplash.com. Select music cues by Dr. Dreamchip and various other stock music and sound effects courtesy of freesound.org. Music from Bigfoot Apocalypse and Thorax, theme from Octoberpod, composed by Nico Vitezi. All other images, music, and FX cues, except where noted, are sourced from within the public domain. Follow us on YouTube at Octoberpod Home Video, on Instagram, and the app I still call Twitter at Octoberpod VHS, and on TikTok and Blue Sky at Octoberpod. Or find us and all of our links on the World Wide Web at Octoberpodvhs.com. For business inquiries or story submissions, email octoberpod@gmail.com. If you enjoyed this program, we'd be very pleased if you told your friends about us. And while you're at it, write us a 5-star or equivalent review wherever you're listening. The man who spoke to you was Mr. Edward October.
Do you love the strange, the unexplained, and the downright terrifying? Horrifying History takes you on a chilling journey into the dark corners of the past, where history and horror collide. From haunted places and ghostly legends to unsolved mysteries and terrifyingly true stories, you will uncover the twisted facts that history books leave out. Who were the real monsters behind infamous legends? What dark secrets lie buried in the pages of history? Every episode, we reveal the eerie truths that will send shivers down your spine. Are you brave enough to face the darkness? Horrifying History, available now wherever you listen to your podcasts. But don't wait for too long. The past might just come looking for you. Listen if you dare.
Madison is on the air.
Do you love old-time radio?
Yes!
Do you know absolutely nothing about old-time radio?
Also yes.
Then Madison on the Air is for you. Follow Madison, a modern-day makeup influencer, as she zaps back into the golden age of radio. Every episode is standalone with a wide variety of genres to choose from, like detective noir.
You put the dick in private dick.
Superheroes.
So I am in the body of the Green Hornet.
Westerns.
Saloon fight. Now this is a Western.
Sci-fi.
Dude, the Martian's got a freaking heat ray.
Plus classic characters.
Toto. Oh, I gotta get that dog into an obedience class. Really digging Dracula's OG goth style. What if I killed freaking Sherlock Holmes?
And many more. Actual old-time radio scripts adapted.
It's like if the MST3K riff tracks guys were in the movies they riff.
Start at the beginning or jump around to any title that grabs you. New episodes premiere the first of every month.
Find us wherever you get your podcasts.
A very gifted horror writer who can scare you shitless. Her imagination is second to none. Fantastic Victorian ghost stories, Jane Nightshade, the horror author who's been called the Countess of Creep and the Queen of Indie Horror. A Scream Full of Ghosts, Serial Encounters, The Drowning Game. And coming later this year, Ghosts Never Leave and Hellbound Highway. The horror fiction of Jane Nightshade has been collected in more than 3 books, with tales in over 40 anthologies, magazines, and podcasts. Enter a world of the macabre, the strange, and the quietly terrifying with the horror fiction of Jane Nightshade. Available wherever online books are sold. Test. This is the Ren Fair stuff. You know, it's a cloudy day out, and so maybe that's smart to record during the clouds and the rain. No lawn equipment. And probably less air traffic, too.
Make things from scratch, make my own. I haven't done it yet, but it would be super cool to make my own clothing. A lot of people at the Ren Fair did make their own clothing. I even know a lady that is married to a friend of mine. I performed their wedding because I am a reverend and an ordained minister. And anyway, she makes clothing the way that the Vikings did because she researched how to do it. And like...
You know, say no lawn equipment and then the fucking birds start chirping. Jesus Christ.
Like, and the thing is, like, I didn't grow up knowing about Ren Fairology or Ren life, so to speak. My parents were not into it. Rather, my dad was not into it. My mother said she would have loved to go to one, but she wasn't going to go alone, and he was definitely not into that. So, this, as an adult is my first delving into them, and I almost feel like they came up out of nowhere. I don't remember seeing things about Ren Fairs growing up, right? So it's like, are they like alien pods that have been put down on Earth to encourage everyone to try and like take several steps back? Like, don't just take several seats, y'all. Take several steps back and look at what it used to be like. And oh, look.
And asked to go in. Hold on. Let me color code my shit. Because if it ain't highlighted, Daddy won't read it.
The biggest thing for me personally was feeling like I was in 2 separate time periods at the same time, because I am not a Ren lifer. I have enjoyed time at Ren Fairs. I've been to a couple. I worked this one this year doing tea leaf readings, and it was wonderful, and it was wonderful to meet everyone. It was lovely to meet the people that were in character as well as the people that were just being themselves. And the more I tried to be Ren Fair-ish, I just sound Cockney British. Like that was how it would go every time. I'd start out trying to sound old Englishy, and then it was just Cockney British accent all the way. And I mean, I guess that's okay. It made people laugh, and
Do you hear lawn equipment outside? I sure as fuck don't. Clip from The Descent. FX screams, thunder, chainsaw.
Damage to his humorous. That's not very humorous, now is it? Sorry.
Oh, no, you know what we're going to do? We're going to do this. Go all there.
We steered clear of the barn, like I said, but we did go to get some cornbread. No?
Says Roku Daime Hokage. Says Roku Daime Hokage. No. Says Roku Daime Hokage.
Ass out of that barn. My bad.
Oh, submechanophobia, by the way, is the fear of submerged or partially submerged man-made object.
Let me try that again. Since fair is a naturally very let me try it a third time.
But that's how the girls trip but that's how the girls' trip went.
JFC, it made my blood turn cold. Now I know how to better disengage from uncomfortable situations. Fair is a lovely, amazing place, but it can attract creeps like this. Be careful out there, y'all. Sorry, I don't know what JFC stands for. Otherwise, I would have read out that acronym. If you know, I can look it up and try and send it to you later.
Australia. We should probably put in an Australian effect here.
I remember we turned on the shower thinking the steam would help cover up the smell of weed or whatever. Let me try that again. Sorry. We decided to be a good place to smoke a bowl. I remember we turned on the shower thinking the steam would help us cover up the smell of weed. God damn, I cannot get through that without chuckling. One more time. And decided it'd be a good place to smoke a bowl.
Why, you can't even take a relaxing canoe trip with your douchey bros.
Full disclosure, I was expecting I thought this lady was going to be dead, and 13 days I saw 13 days, I was thinking 13 reasons why, you know what I'm saying? It's sad his grandfather died, but I'm glad it wasn't a lady that hanged herself at the Ren Fair, because fuck, that would be a horribly memorable Ren Fair.
Many rural folk are honest, hardworking people who never resort to vandalism. Vandalism. I don't know, they fucking do vandalism.
Anyway, I hope these all work out for you.